Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. We're back, and well, today I think you'll find our next guest to be absolutely fascinating. His name is James Wilburn Chauncey. He's the author of a book entitled Eyewitness to Heaven. And as a young boy, he died and went to heaven. You may want to check this book out. It's available on at Barnes & Noble and at the bookstores and online at Amazon. And James, nice to have you with us today. Where are you, by the way?
Oh, it's very nice to be with you today. We're in Fayetteville, Georgia.
All right, nice to have you with us. Well, listen, let's go back. You died of bacterial spinal meningitis, is that correct?
That is correct.
And how old were you at the time?
At the time I died, I was just turning 7 years of age.
Wow. Well, lead us through the story. What happened?
I guess I was pretty much a normal type kid until one afternoon I was riding my brother's bicycle around the house. Had a very sudden pain, knocked me out. I hit the ground, and a few hours later, I was into convulsions and great pain. And within a few hours after that, I was pronounced dead at the hospital. Back then, it was an incurable disease. There was no treatment for this meningitis at that time.
All right, you were pronounced dead, and you were heading. The Department of Health ordered you to be cremated. How long were you dead?
No one knows for certain how long that was. I died somewhere around 1 o'clock in the morning, and the nurses were supposed to remove my body around 4. They came in around 5. And when they came in, I one of the nurses came over and pulled the sheet off of my face, saying, "I want to see this boy that died." And when she did, I just sat up in the bed and said, "Give her a great big hi," and smile, and she went screaming out of the room.
I would imagine so. All right, let's get into it. You went to heaven. Tell us your experience. What did you sense and feel?
Well, when I died, I came out of my body, and shortly thereafter, an angel arrived and told me what he was, and he was there to take me to paradise, and that we had to wait a little while because the other angel who was to escort us also had to take another person to heaven. So we waited for a while, and I watched as the doctors and nurses did the things that they did, covered my body, closed up the room, and that sort of thing. And I also watched my parents going through the grieving process of just finding out that their kid had died. And then the other angel arrived, and we traveled to heaven and to paradise, and as we did, we passed over what people refer to as hell, and I encountered Lucifer and bad angels and good angels, and then we arrived in heaven, and I was met by a brother I didn't know I had.
Really? Tell us about that.
Well, I asked him, he looked like one of my brothers, kind of a mixture of the way they looked, but I'd never seen him before. I asked him who he was, and he told me that he was my brother, that he had been ran over by an automobile, and that he only lived a few months, and then he died. And then 2 other people showed up immediately, a boy and a girl. And I asked who they were, and they told me that they too were my brother and sister, that they had died just very shortly after childbirth. And then there were a lot of other people that came out, and I was able to see my ancestry back for over 1,000 over 1,000 years.
Now, was the story about your brother and other brothers and sisters, obviously that's true?
Oh, that's absolutely true. Whenever after this ordeal was completely over and I had returned back home, my mother was in the bedroom Sunday morning, and she was making up the beds, and I went in and I asked her about my brothers and sisters, and she just was very, very distraught over that because they had sort of kept that from all of us kids. And my father came in, and then they told me about what had happened with the children. And that evening, they took me to the grave sites.
Wow. All right. So, what was the feeling like? What were you feeling? What was heaven like? What were you sensing?
Well, it was absolute joy and peace. If you can imagine the total absence of evil, and I think that's a very difficult thing for people to imagine, but if you can just imagine that total absence of evil in such a peaceful place.
Did you see Christ?
Oh, Jesus, yes. Yes, I saw Jesus. They wanted the angels. One of the angels that helped escort me to paradise came out and told me that Jesus wanted me to go back to earth. And I put up kind of a fuss. And the angel came back and forth. And finally, Jesus told him to show me what my future would be like if I did go back, and what it would be like if I didn't go back. And so I was able to see my future. I saw some terrible tragedies occurring with my parents, and then I saw what was going to happen here on Earth over the next 100 years.
Now, you saw a vision of America. Tell us about that.
Well, I saw a vision of America and the world, but mostly it concentrated on America. I saw the future wars that were coming through America, and especially this last war that is going to be upon us. As a matter of fact, the movements of that war has already started, and it just the war lasts about 10 to 15 years. And at the end of that 10 to 15 years, then that's when Jesus will return with the angels.
All right. Now, describe that war.
Oh, that's a difficult thing to talk about because it's such a memory. The aggression began as I really hope I'm wrong on this. I saw the armies moving out of what is known as the Soviet Russia area, moving south. And over the next 5 years, they moved on through Asia and Africa, and they all banded together as one fighting group. And then they moved over across Europe and England, and then they came to the shores of America. And the war in America lasted somewhere around, I guess, just guessing at this now, 4 or 5 years. And there was a tremendous amount of destruction. The planes, in grammar school, I would draw pictures, doodling on the paper.
Now, this happened in the 40s, so do you think any of this could have been post your heaven experience, say some of the other wars that now have occurred around the world?
Everything that I was shown while I was there in paradise, except for these final episodes, has occurred. There has been not one thing that I was shown that has not yet occurred.
So you saw Vietnam, war in Afghanistan, Iraq.
Oh yes, I saw the world, the different wars around the world. Yes.
Now it's interesting because you're saying you had a sense of time, but yet heaven is timeless. How were you able to kind of explain that to us? Because we can't get a handle on that one.
Well, the most difficult thing I have had to deal with is having seen all that I saw and trying to put it into context. For the first, I would say, 6 or 7 years, I recognized what had happened, but I had no time frame, nothing to relate it to. It wasn't until I was in my 50s that I began to look back on these things that I was shown, and I would say, these things have happened. And if these things are happening, maybe I better pay more attention to these things that I was shown. And I have since then begun to watch very closely, and and put the things together that I saw with the times that I've lived.
James, I want to take a quick break and come back. I'm going to hold you over one more segment, if that's okay. I want you to describe to our viewers and listeners, you're in heaven, you're having conversations with relatives, you met Jesus. We haven't taken time for you to describe what was heaven like. I mean, the absence of evil, but physically, what was the appearance of it? And we'll be right back with James Chauncey in just a moment. Okay, we're back, and we're talking to James Chauncey. He's the author of a book entitled Eyewitness to Heaven. And you may want to check it out at the bookstores, and there's a picture of it there on the screen. And as a boy, at the age of 7, he died of a bacterial spinal meningitis attack that literally took his life. And he was in heaven for several hours, and then came back to life. And he's sharing with us his story, as vivid as it is, as a young boy. James, before we went to the break, I was asking you to describe to us, you were there in heaven, you knew it was paradise, an angel escorted you there, you met some brothers and sisters that you didn't know that you had, that died before, I guess, you were born, and you had a chance to meet Jesus, and Jesus said you were going to go back. But describe heaven itself. I mean, you said it was without evil, and that would be heaven. There's no question about it. But
absolutely,
yeah. So describe it. What'd you see?
Well, I have to put this in context. Over the years, since I'm 75 years of age, and I've gone to a number of different church denominations, I've learned that they all have a little bit of a different interpretation of the description that you read in the Bible. So when I begin to describe it exactly as I see it, that creates some kind of discomfort among some people. To say mostly it is representative of what you read in the Bible. I saw the tree of life, the river. I saw all of the saints, the buildings, the walls, the tabernacle that Jesus is in. I saw creatures. I guess you would say animals or creature type animals that I had never seen before, and they were quite extraordinary. I saw the old saints. I saw Adam. I saw Moses.
Elijah.
Yeah, I saw Elijah, and I also saw the disciples that was with Jesus, because they came and they gathered around the temple entrance there, and he was meeting with them and talking with them.
Wow. What was your body like?
It was strange. When I came out of my body, I was a very small child. My mother referred to me as petite. I don't know what that meant. but
Small,
I
small.
was small. Whenever I came out of my body, I was full grown.
Mm.
I was as tall as the angels were, and as tall as the doctors and the nurses were. And so when I arrived in paradise, everyone there is of an age range that I would put between late teenage and mid to very early late 20s. There's not any really old people or any really young people. It's like everybody takes on a different body, like the body they would have at their best physical appearance.
Well, that's good news.
Oh yeah, it was.
Okay, before I run out of time here again, you saw some world events. Some of those you've lived to see now come to pass. You saw the United States. You saw the war in the Middle East. These things have now come to pass. I have a note here that you saw something concerning the White House. Is that true?
At the end of the visions and at the end of the war, as the smoke and the clouds and all the noise had dissipated, I saw the President of the United States as he came out of the White House bunker, and he was followed by a lot of different people, and I have that vision in my head, and I have been looking for that person all my life. And I do now see some people in our political arena which so very closely resemble that image that I saw, that I'm totally convinced that this time is upon us.
All right. So you were told to go back. You didn't want to go back, and it sounded like you earlier said there would be some consequences if you didn't go back.
If I didn't go back, my mother and father after losing the 3 children, and I guess you can imagine what kind of a stress that puts on a marriage. Mm-hmm. I've been told over the years that one parent will try to blame the other one, and they will blame each other, and it causes problems in the family. And that happened in our family. My mother blamed my father for the deaths. My father blamed my mother for the deaths, and it just caused a very hostile type situation occasionally. And then they would get into these bitter fights, some of them physically. And yes, at one time it was coming down to a deadly confrontation between my mother and my father. And that's what I saw. And I saw the result of one of them dying and the other one going to jail. And when I came back, after I came back, that conflict actually occurred, and I was able to step in between my mother and father and stop it from happening.
All right. So tell us the experience about coming back.
Well, I didn't want to come back in the first place, but when I did come back, when we got back to the hospital, the room, the angels told me, I asked them, I said, well, what am I supposed to do? And they said, get back into your body. And I says, well, how? And they says, well, you just jump like you're going to jump into your mouth, and we'll take care of the rest of it. So I did, and it felt like I was just being sucked down into my body. And I told them, I said, hey, it's cold in here. Mm. And they said, well, don't worry, it will warm up. We're warming it up for you. And so things kind of returned back to normal. I was able to see. I was able to look at the angels, and they told me, they said, we're going to cover you up. You go back to sleep, and the next person you see will be some nurses. And that's how that occurred.
Wow. Well, James, this is a fascinating story. I can tell that even these many years later, it's still moving to you. And
well, my book, Eyewitness to Heaven, was originally over 500 pages. I had so much detail in it that it was just terribly confusing, and I think because I just don't think people could grasp it. So I cut it down to the very small size that it is, and I just sort of skim across things. I don't get into a lot of detail, and because there is just so much about paradise that is so overwhelming. It is marvelous.
Wow. Well, you're a fascinating guest to talk to. Thanks for your time today, and may the Lord continue to use you in these days ahead, and look forward to maybe getting you back someday soon.
It'll be my pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you.
All right, thank you. James Chauncey with us today, and the author of the book, Eyewitness to Heaven. We'll be right back in just a moment.